This is a wild story for you guys. So, while we're talking about, the rise of anti-Semitism, why we need to crack down on TikTok and X and social media and the youngsters that are watching dance videos, they might all of a sudden start hating Jews because apparently anti-Semitism started just immediately, and all this rise of anti-Semitic crimes that are happening, that there's no police records, blah, 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 blah. We already talked about all this. But I bring this attention again because now it's evolved to children's drawings. I kid you not. Children using crayon coloring pictures are now being deemed anti-Semitic. By who? By this guy, who is an Israeli UN ambassador. And this account, Hats Off, pointed this out. It says, children's peace-themed drawings deemed hateful content by Israeli authorities. Children using Crayola crayons, drawing pictures of probably snowmen and what else are deemed hateful, according to Israeli authorities. Little kids' drawings. I just can't believe this. I can't believe how far the goalpost has stretched for this. That children's drawings are now part of anti-Semitic hate crime waves that are happening. So let's see how this goes.
Look at the drawings of children from all around the world. Nothing about Israel. Nothing about our hostages. Look what they have. They don't recognize Israel. They promote hate in those drawings. That is shameful. This is part of the...
They promote hate. They promote bigotry. There's nothing about Israel. Literally, it's a dove. It's the symbol for peace. All these are hateful people. How? How does anyone with a functioning brain cell can look at that and go, yes, it's hateful? They're drawing, doves, the peace symbol. They're drawing the planet Earth. There's a tree. Oh my God. So hateful. Are they using the wrong coloring? Is that it? You're supposed to use an aquamarine for coloring water, okay? You're not supposed to use a dark blue or a purple. It's aquamarine or nothing. Like, how's this hateful? You gotta see this again.
Look at the drawings of children from all around the world. Nothing about Israel. Nothing about our hostages. Look what they have. They don't recognize Israel. They promote hate in those drawings. That is shameful. This is part of the hypocrisy of the United Nations. I demand that the UN will remove this exhibit immediately and will stop with the hypocrisy against it. Look at the drawings of...
Yeah, so we gotta remove children's drawings on a quilt being presented in this art exhibit because it hurts Israel's feelings. There is nothing about Israel on this. There is everything hatred about this. Peace, love, unity, humanity, the good of nature. I can't believe how far humanity has gone, ladies and gentlemen, that someone would actually take the time to stand next to a quilt here of children's drawings in this art exhibit and make it a literal offense to them. Look at these drawings of children. They're pushing anti-Semitism. Oh, dear God. They have really taken over the Karen motif. Like, think of all the videos you've seen of the desperate housewife screaming in front of a store, crowd full of people, demanding the manager. This outshines all of it. Look at these drawings. Look at these drawings. Kids using crayons to describe hatred. Take this seriously. Let's watch it again.
Children from all around the world. Nothing about Israel. Nothing about our hostages. Look what they have. They don't recognize Israel. They promote hate in those drawings.
You know, I also don't see there nothing about Canada, nothing about the United States, nothing about Mexico, nothing about China. Should I also be enraged that they're not including them in their drawings? You got to be inclusive. I'm so sick of seeing this peace begins with a smile. Are you part of the Ben Shapiro cult club of people against John Lennon? Because that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of that 50-minute rant that Ben Shapiro did, smashing down on John Lennon's song Imagine, calling it the worst song ever produced. And I'm thinking, like, are you kidding me? All the songs that are out there, I can name hundreds of them, are far worse than John Lennon's Imagine. Oh, why is it the worst song, Ben? Because they talk about heaven. They talk about peace and love. So hateful. We can't love our fellow people. God. No, we can't allow that to happen. You gotta allow for the continuation of segregating everybody, making everyone epitomize each other so we can every man for themselves and kill each other so someone becomes superior. That's the whole prosperous of our Zionist teachings. Nothing about peace and love. That's why they find this so offensive. I just can't believe this. I can't believe this. So Russell Dobler, Do Dissidents, did a shout out saying, it's like he's in a contest with Rabbi Shmuley and Olivia Reingold for who can spread the most anti-Semitism in a week. Winner gets a fridge full of trafficked organs. I don't know who's Olivia Reingold. I'm not too sure who exactly that is, but that's a funny joke. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows, great UK guy. Children's drawing disturbs the beast. Apparently children using crayons to, create a peace symbol or draw a dove with an olive branch is hateful. It's hateful to someone like him. You were a UN representative for Israel. Look at this. They're not describing our country whatsoever. Yeah. There's also not the American flag, the Canada flag, UK, China. Like, am I supposed to be angry about that? Am I supposed to be angry that there's not inclusiveness in this? I thought we're supposed to be against all the, wokeism. But here you are being the most vicious woke guy you could be. Calling children's drawings hateful. Wow. And this is not anything new, unfortunately, because here, from the Times of Israel, this is back in June of 2022. So this is before October 7th. This is before, supposedly, the rise of anti-Semitism. It says, Israel Jew voice disgusted over anti-Semitic imagery at a German art festival. I think it kind of gives it away when you're at a German art festival. Kind of the people that were responsible for the Holocaust, the demise of the Jewish population. Yeah, you're going to go to a German art festival and realize that maybe some of the imagery is going to be a bit anti-Semitic in your view. You don't expect that coming? Wow. So, Jewish leaders and Israeli embassy to Germany on Monday voiced disgust over anti-Semitic images on display at Documenta, one of the world's biggest art affairs. Documenta had played clouded in controversy for months over its inclusion of a Palestinian artist group strongly critical of the Israeli occupation. 2 days after the show opened to the public, one of the works on display by Indonesian art group Tearing Patty also came under fire for depictions that both the German government and Jewish groups say they went too far. The offending mural depicts a pig wearing a helmet embezzled Mossad. In that same work, a man is depicted with side locks, often associated with Orthodox Jews, fangs and bloodshot eyes, and wearing a black hat with the SS insignia. We are disgusted by the anti-Semitic elements publicly displayed at Documenta 15 exhibition, Israel's embassy said in a statement. Elements being portrayed in certain exhibits are reminiscent of propaganda used by the Goebbels and his goons during the darker times in German history, it added. All red lines have not been crossed. They have been shattered. Joseph Schuster of the Central Council of Jews in Germany noted that the artistic freedom ends where xenophobic begins. But they depict both sides of it. And that's kind of the point of art. You push the boundaries. You're not supposed to be, politically correct. That's kind of the point of being an artist. That's why comics thrive better when they're edgy. If they're for the establishment and for political correctness, then they're not really artists, are they? They're just mouthpieces. They're just propagandists. So, an art exhibit showcasing both the occupation of Jewish forces on Palestine and also showing Nazis back in Germany and comparing the two, it's very symbolic. That's part of art culture. That's why art exists. And art exists in different interpretations for different people. But apparently it's freaking out these people because, oh my God, my opinion is more valuable than anybody else's. Culture Minister Claudia Roth also said it's where artistic freedom finds its limits as she urges the show's curators to draw the necessary conclusions. The president of the German-Israeli Society, Volker Beck, told the Blind Daily newspaper that he was filing a case with prosecutors over the picture. Documenta held in the German city of Kassel includes the works of more than 1,500 participants. For the first time since its launch in 1955, the show is being curated by collective Indonesian Rupengrumba. Again, I'm mispronouncing these words. But even the run-up of the show's opening this weekend, the group has come under fire for including the collective called The Question of Funding over its links to the BDS Boycott Israel movement. BDS was branded anti-Semitic by the German parliament in 2019 and barred from receiving federal funds. Around half of Documenta's 42 million euro or $44 million budget comes from public funds. Opening the exhibition this weekend, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier said he had considered skipping the event. While some criticism is justified of Israel's policies. Oh, really? Some criticism. We get to pick and choose what criticism we're allowed to have. Some such as on the settlement building, he said the recognition of the Israeli state is the basis and prerequisite of the debate in Germany. He called it disturbing that some from outside Europe or North America had refused to take part of cultural events in which Jewish Israelis were participating. It was striking that no Jewish artist from Israel was represented at this edition of Documenta, he noted. So, it's so crazy. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword for this. Because they're complaining that these artists are using free expression to make a statement, to make a gesture, to use the artistic form to, make a political statement when it comes to the occupation of Palestine or reflecting on the, the Nazi brigades going after the Jewish populations in Poland and whatnot. At the same time, they're also complaining that they're being exiled from not being able to participate in showing pro-Jewish voices. So it's double-edged on this decision. But it's so crazy. It's so crazy that the people that claim that are the least woke. This is where the woke right comes into play. The woke right is actually the people that are the most pro-Israel, not the ones against it, but the ones that are actually so pro-it that they're willing to censor, silence out, and cancel their own brethren because it defies against this death cult that's been created by Zionism, which Zionism is not a part of Judaism, but they take it upon themselves to manufacture the coalition between Judaism and Zionism so they can use it as an excuse. So they could say anyone that criticizes Zionism, the political movement, is automatically committed making anti-Semitic remarks, even though it has nothing to do with Jewish people. It has to do with Israel. It has to do with Benjamin Netanyahu. It has to do with the Zionist cult movement that's established, that surrounds itself in the correlation of the function of Israel. And it just keeps getting further and further. This goalpost of what is considered anti-Semitism just keeps going out and out and out. And as we said before, like the boy that cried wolf, you know, you keep moving that goalpost. So when there's actually a real anti-Semitic hate crime happening, when someone's actually attacking someone based on their Jewish beliefs, then no one's going to believe it because of all the falsehoods, all the false flags, all the manufacturing, and constantly moving the goalposts to really crack down on anti-Semitism. They keep having to redefine it every single time because someone critiques the state of Israel or someone critiques the U.S. for supporting it. So here's Chris Menahan saying Ted Cruz warns Jewish federations of growing anti-Israel sentiment on the right. 20-somethings are picking up their phones and they're watching TikTok. They're watching Instagram and they're hearing this message being driven and it's resonating. So he's angry at the fact that we're not taking control of young people. That's the whole reason why, you know, TikTok and China and they're stealing your information. We know that all tech companies steal information. We know that on the regular. The United States agencies takes information on the regular. That's nothing new. But the reason for all this is because we are not propagandizing people. We're not the ones controlling our youngsters. Now these young people are looking at a different worldview and they might come to their own conclusions. They might think for themselves. Can't allow for that to happen. So here's Ted Cruz having to freak out at this rally for the Jewish Federation in the United States. Watch this.
Spreading. There are pastors who love Israel who think all is fine, and my message to them is go and talk to the teenagers in your congregation. Go and talk to the 20-somethings in your congregation because they're picking up their phone and they're watching TikTok and they're watching Instagram and they're hearing this message being driven and it is resonating. And if you want an illustration of this, several weeks ago, J.D. Vance was down at Ole Miss at a Turning Point gathering, and one kid got up, asked this viciously anti-Semitic question. The most horrifying thing to me is what happened in the second later, which is the crowd erupted in applause. Not everybody.
A horrific anti-Semitic question. Oh my God. A kid dared to ask a question. The horror. Oh my God, the horror. That's why we got to get all these priests and pastors that may have, you know, sexual pervertedness. We got to get them involved in more youngsters. Oh, because a kid at Turning Point USA had a question. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. This is such a joke. This is literally such a joke. America, land the free, home of the brave. You young people out there better not be asking questions. And if you're curious or concerned, just shut up. Shut up. Because that may or may not be anti-Semitic. We don't know for sure. We're redefining the definition again. Wow. A youngster asked a question that I consider anti-Semitic. This fascinates me. Like, this generation grew up in an era where South Park Family Guy, Robot Chicken, all these like, crude, lowbrow cartoons existed where they constantly make jokes, where, Comedy Central used to, jab at so many people. Even in an era where all the family existed. And they got to do stuff like this. A kid asked a question. Oh my God, so anti-Semitic. Like, did we not... all the times you grew up with material that was controversial, that stretched boundaries, that pushed the envelope on certain things. Now in 2025, asking a question is so bad.
My guess is 20 to 30% of the kids there were applauding the viciously anti-Semitic question.
And the kids were applauding. The kids were applauding. All these kids are anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic. He's anti-Semitic. Everybody's got to be anti-Semitic. In fact, if you're not anti-Semitic now, you might be anti-Semitic for not being anti-Semitic. This is just so crazy. It's so crazy. It's so cringeworthy. And this ruins the whole purpose of what stopping anti-Semitism is supposed to be. Again, this is the boy that cried wolf. This is just like a few years ago when the Democrats and the left tried to use racism. Everything was racist. They tried to do the Jussie Smollett, the actor. They did that fake attack because he was a black gay actor. And they tried to manufacture this event that he was being attacked by Trump voters in Chicago, 2 men dressed in MAGA gear, but it turned out to be a false flag stunt. So all the time that the left was trying to use racism for that, now the right's trying to do this with anti-Semitism. Do you see the pattern? Do you see how absurd all this is? Do you see why I don't give credit to any of this? Do you see why all this is such a laughingstock joke? And why Ted Cruz is an embarrassment. He's the ultimate embarrassment of people with power. The absurdity. This guy came from Canada. I still can't believe it. I'm embarrassed that this guy came from Canada. Because this is not how a Canadian should represent. This is not how a man should represent. Oh my God, a kid asked a question and the crowd applauded. It's definitely anti-Semitic. Oh my God, how crazy is that it? So, this is the question. This is supposedly the question that infuriated Ted Cruz, that became anti-Semitic. So, student to JD Vance at a Turning Point USA event. Why do we have to give Israel billions of dollars in support? That's anti-Semitic, according to Ted Cruz. Why do we give Israel billions of dollars in support? Just a general query on foreign aid. Hey, why are we giving money to Ukraine? Why are we giving money to Taiwan? Why are we giving money to Saudi Arabia? Like, that's just a genuine foreign policy question. That's nothing to do with Jewish people, but they want to make it anti-Semitic because it's about Israel. And the student asked the question to JD Vance, and of course, JD Vance, being part of the Trump administration, being part of this cabal that completely sold out its base, completely sold out for making Israel great again, not America, has to make cover, has to do some damages with this kid just asking a question that apparently is anti-Semitic. Look at this.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel sometimes...
But that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. America first means you serve Americans first. And a lot of Americans disagree with supporting Israel in ethnically cleansing Gaza. A huge majority of Americans disagree with sending tax dollars to Israel to orchestrate a genocide. A lot of them agree. And that's across Democrats, that's across independents, that's growing into Republicans. And that's why, in some cases, it's not proven yet, but that's why a lot of people have the suspicion that why Charlie Kirk got cut out. Because Charlie Kirk was having these questions. Charlie Kirk was just like that kid. Just like that kid. He went on to podcasts and said, you know, why are we sending all this money to Israel? And considering I went to Israel and saw it as a fortress and saw what they're doing to Gaza, like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? When there's American cities that are starving, when there's, you know, people on the streets back home, when veterans that have served their time, that sacrificed their lives and duty for us, are on the streets on their deathbeds, and we're screwing over more and more people as we're doing. Like, why? Why are we sending up more foreign wars? Like, this is all the things that, you know, Charlie Kirk was coming to a conclusion on. So that's where people had that suspicion. But of course, you know, you get idiots like Ted Cruz. That was so anti-Semitic. It was so anti-Semitic. And then the crowd was applauding it. Of why our money is going to a foreign nation. So anti-Semitic. Which, by the way, I just laugh. The whole absurdity of this, because people don't realize we've supported the Nazis for decades. And no one cries anti-Semitic about that. No one cries about Operation Paperclip being a direct anti-Semitic violation. That we're bringing Nazi war criminals into America and facilitating them into our science and medical and eugenics and all this. Nobody calls that anti-Semitic. No one calls serving a bunch of neo-Nazis in Ukraine anti-Semitic. No one calls when we applauded a Ukrainian Nazi in Parliament twice in Canada here. No one called that anti-Semitic. But a youngster who is asking a simple question is considered anti-Semitic. Children's drawings are anti-Semitic. What absurdity all this
Sometimes
is.
they have similar interests to the United States, and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the President of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say...
And how'd that work out? How'd that work out? Because we saw that Netanyahu, the moment he left Washington, before he even got on the plane, immediately said, screw America. Screw the peace plan. Screw Donald Trump. We're going our direction. Which goes to show you all these peace plans are just theatrics. And the only way to stop it is to cut off the funding. You cut off the funding of war, the war ends. Bingo. That's what should be happening. That's what should be doing with Ukraine. But no, Donald Trump's still funneling money towards Ukraine. Donald Trump's funneling money towards Israel to continue on that. They're threatening to go a war with Iran again. Another disastrous regime change war. And they also want to overthrow Venezuela. This is coming from the peace president. The guy who's supposed to wrap it up in 48 hours. I don't want any more dead bodies. I'm so sick and tired of dead bodies. I want to stop the dying, the killing. Well, what do you think's happening now? What do you think's happening now?
that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States. They're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you.
I promise you. Believe me. Trust the science, trust MAGA. We're putting your interests ahead of some foreign country. Trust us. Believe us. Donald Trump is not compromised. Trust me. Ted Cruz is not on stage because he's compromised. No, trust me. We're doing this on your benefit. Well, here's an article here. This is from Hey Fox 14. U.S. has given Israel $305.4 billion in foreign aid for nearly 75 years, Watchdog Group says. $305.4 billion in nearly 75 years. Why exactly is that? And why is it that everyone keeps telling me or keeps informing that Israel is such a great ally, but no one can ever answer why exactly they're such a great ally? Why is Israel an ally? Why is Saudi Arabia an ally? Wasn't it the Saudis, the ones that did 9/11? Weren't they the perpetrators that started Al-Qaeda and are beheading people? Why are we allies with them? Why are we allies with these people? No one's ever to answer that question. And considering the fact that they claim that, this is Israel defending itself, well, clearly Israel can only defend itself if America defends Israel. The money has to be transferred to Israel in order for Israel to exist. Looks like $305.4 billion. Imagine that. But it's for your benefit. It's for your benefit. So while we're cutting healthcare, while we're cutting Social Security, while we're, messing transportation, while we're cutting back, while jobs are becoming more scarce, don't worry. Trust me. We're doing this for you. $305 billion. Imagine if a smidge of that went towards, high-speed rail or Medicare for all or, Social Security to make sure our elder people are taken care of. How about actually reinforcing the veterans assistance so they get properly treated? The ones that actually sacrifice their lives for these outrageous wars. Here's another. This is from the AP. U.S. has given at least $21.7 billion in military aid to Israel since the war in Gaza began, report says. $21.7 billion. And right now, because of the big, beautiful bill, Trump, all those Doge cuts, all the waste and fraud and reckless spending that you thought was going to go back to you, trickled right to the Pentagon, which is the biggest abuser of federal funds. The people that failed an audit every single damn time. Now we're giving them $1 trillion to funnel more warfare. A guy who was supposed to wrap things up in 48 hours. It was all done in a phone call. I can just phone up people and end the wars. Well, turns out somebody phoned Donald Trump and told him, get on the wars or else. Because clearly, Donald Trump is compromised. Ted Cruz is compromised. Majority of the GOP and the people that aren't compromised, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, and others, they're the ones being persecuted because they're not bought, because they're not controllable, because Israel can't get their grimy hands on those politicians, even though these are Americans that are working in interest for Americans. So, turns out when you have a politician that actually represents its constituency, that's a dangerous threat. That's why they gotta get primaried. That's why they spent millions and millions of dollars trying to primary people like Thomas Massie. And Donald Trump has to go on a Twitter feud between him and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rand Paul. You know, people that give a damn about America. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. So we got children's drawings that are now anti-Semitic and asking questions. Again, we're getting to the point where if you're not anti-Semitic, you're clearly anti-Semitic.